Hey! Whew, okay, sorry about that. I didn't see you there. Well, you could say this has been a long time coming, huh? Taking a look at this guy. If you were strictly a PlayStation 1 kid growing up like I was, and you loved Crash Bandicoot, it was more than likely you heard about Spyro the Dragon from Insomniac Games. What many consider their first real endeavor in the video game scene, if you're not counting the 1996 Disruptor, which was basically Doom with a story and live-action cutscenes.
I understand that the extractor can be a little disconcerting to the thought process. I'd offer you a couple of aspirin, but I'm not authorized to prescribe medication.
Despite positive reception, this game would end up a commercial failure, causing Insomniac Games to rethink their approach for their next title. Now, the idea of centering around a dragon was decided early on, but originally it was supposed to have a much darker and realistic tone, inspired by the 1996 Dragonheart. Well, that's a name I haven't heard in a while. No shit, I actually did watch this movie a whole lot as a kid. I wonder if it still holds up.
And when there are no more dragons to slay, how will you make a living, knight? Shut up!
I'd say it does, but Mark Cerny, good old Mark Cerny, God, he really was fucking everywhere during the 90s, huh? Advised the developers to appeal more to the mass market at the time. Get those kids playing on their N64s to cut that shit out and boot up the PlayStation. And thus, the cute and colorful Spyro the Dragon was finalized, though originally they were trying to call this guy Pete. I'm glad they went with Spyro. Those that have been following my channel since my original Crash Bandicoot videos, which fun fact, were over 11 years ago, you'll recall that, yeah, I've known about Spyro since I was a kid, but it wasn't a series I would grow up with. My first experience with the Purple Dragon was courtesy of Crash Bandicoot 3. If you entered the legally distinct Konami code on the title screen, you unlocked a demo for Spyro, giving players a sample of things to come, or should I say, what you've been missing out on, since Spyro 1 predates Crash 3 by a couple of months. As I mentioned in the Ratchet & Clank video, Insomniac Games and Naughty Dog shared the same office space, and were essentially development buddies during the PS1 and PS2 era. They would help each other with programming, and they would promote each other's games. In fact, just as Crash 3 had a demo of Spyro, Spyro 1 had a demo of Crash 3. It was the first jet ski level, which, alright, it wouldn't be my first pick, and it's weird picking up the crystal or gem without hearing the choir noise accompanying it. Ugh, that feels so empty. It just isn't the same without the... But yeah, my first experience with Spyro was from that Crash 3 demo. And I remember thinking back then, despite loving the colorful graphics, this wasn't convincing me. I was getting kind of bored. I couldn't exactly explain why back then, but because of that first impression, Spyro would be something I would just flat out ignore for the decades to come, and it wasn't until years later that I decided to give the full game another shot. But to my shock, it still wasn't grabbing me. It was a struggle for me to play it. And it wasn't until this video that I finally decided to lock in and not only finish it, but 120% the game. But let's see if I can finally explain why this game just wasn't my cup of tea. Oh, and I know we live in a day and age where the Reignited trilogy exists. Basically, the first 3 Spyro games got the Insane trilogy treatment with full-blown remakes for a modern age. But because I was a PlayStation 1 kid, I wanted to play the game as originally released because damn it, the world today scares me. I like to be reminded of a time when I was truly happy in my life. Let me fucking have this. Our game begins with some dragons being interviewed on live television where they bask in the fact that times are peaceful and they have a shitload of treasure. But when asked about this so-called nasty Nork who's been slowly building an army, the dragons proclaim that he's nothing to worry about, describing him as simple, non-threatening, and ugly. Unfortunately, the dumbasses don't realize that Nasty's been hearing everything they said because it was a live interview, and feeling hurt by their words, Nasty goes and transforms all the big dragons into crystal statues to get back at them. And you know what, if you ask me, the dragons had this coming. They fucked around and promptly found out. Nasty didn't get all the dragons though, for the smallest of the lot, Spyro, remains free, and alongside his buddy Sparks, a dragonfly, he makes it his mission to not only free the dragons from their crystal imprisonment, but to also get back all the treasure that Nasty's taken from the dragon horde, and then light a fire under Nasty's big green ass. Now why doesn't Nasty simply not just use that crystal magic again on Spyro when confronting him directly?
Shut up!
Well said, Rucksack. And that's it for the plot. The rest of the game is Spyro traveling across 6 different worlds, gathering treasure from all manner of objects, freeing dragons from their prison, and occasionally collecting these dragon eggs from these assholes that like to run all over the fucking place while teasing you.
I do not like this painting, Charlie. Smug aura mocks me. It's evil. Charlie.
But this isn't your standard hallway platformer like Crash Bandicoot. Spyro prides itself on its fully explorable 3D worlds, assuming there's no invisible walls getting in the way. Spyro can go wherever, whenever, with nothing but his fire breath, the wings on his back, and a fully controllable camera. Now, this was nothing new at the time, you know, Super Mario 64 was already a thing for about 2 years, and if we're keeping it strictly PlayStation, then games like Croc Legend of the Gobos and Jersey Devil already did stuff like this, among other games. But Spyro was one of the first on the PlayStation to be considered good at it. It's okay, Croc, I like you. But you see, as a kid, the fully 3D worlds were something of a hurdle for me to jump over, mainly because it was completely up to my discretion on where I'd go and when. The game's great at teaching you the basic mechanics, like Spyro's dashing tackle to cover ground faster and give him concussions when he breaks open those metal chests. Ow, Spyro, you're definitely gonna need a CAT scan at the end of this game. And his limited glide allows him to get across large gaps until the second half of the game, where it will often lead him to eating shit. But what dragons to rescue and what treasure to collect, shit, what levels I'd entered and what order I did so, was entirely up to me. And aside from needing a certain amount of dragons rescued and treasure collected to get to the next world, this game did not railroad me on a set path, and it was off-putting for me because, again, my young dumbass self, I needed a sense of direction. I needed to be told where to go so that I could do it to the best of my ability. Spyro 1 said, here's the next stage, you know what to do, have fun. And some of these levels hide treasure and shit in really elaborate spots, requiring you to think outside the box for some of the more dubious secrets. Even today, as someone in their late 30s with the games I've played throughout the years, when I was recording this, I was caught off guard on what the game asked of me to find every collectible. Which isn't to say newcomers will be left in the dust to fend for themselves. No, the dragons you rescue will often give you advice on a certain hazard in the stage you're in, or remind you of abilities that might come in handy for the upcoming situation. Though some of them can be a little aggressive towards Spyro, despite them being in need of rescuing.
Hey, what's on the other side of that river?
Why don't you glide there and find out?
Dick.
A lot of times they'll just simply thank Spyro for releasing them. And sometimes Spyro sounds like he really doesn't give a shit about what they have to say.
This portal leads to a special place where you can learn to fly. I remember when I was a young dragon, earning my wings.
Learn to fly. Got it.
I like to think Spyro secretly realizes sometimes that, maybe Nasty had a point. I appreciate the devs giving all the dragons their own names too. That's a small thing, but they really didn't need to do that. But they did, and I think it adds to the game's world. But they call one of the dragons in Lofty Castle Murata. But come on, man, I know these guys need rescuing, but calling them useless, that's just fucking mean. I also love the fact that Clancy Brown clearly voices, it sounds like 90% of these guys, which I guess makes sense. He was likely around because he voiced Neo Cortex and Crash Bandicoot, so they probably asked, hey, since you're already here, want to make a few extra bucks? Spyro in this game is voiced by Carlos Alazraqui, who I know as Rocco from Rocco's Modern Life, and despite his gargantuan list of other characters he's voiced throughout the years, I'm sure most of you actually recognize him as the Chihuahua from those Taco Bell commercials.
Yo quiero Taco Bell.
That dog is probably long dead. Your dragonfly buddy, Sparks, also acts as your hit points, and assuming they're still alive and kicking, they can help grab some gems in the immediate vicinity, which doesn't sound like much, but you'll realize how much you'll miss this when you suddenly don't have them because you took one too many dinks and you have to grab gems manually with Spyro. And look, I think Spyro controls fine, it's fine, but this is a 1998 platformer when analog control was still considered new, and Spyro's turning can feel wide and imprecise when dealing with tiny platforms and such. Oh, fuck. To go back to what I was saying before though, the 3D exploration aspect was something I struggled with as a kid, but as an adult it's something I can appreciate more, and for sure I think it's the most appealing aspect of the original Spyro. The freedom players are given to achieve either the bare minimum or full completion. Spyro has everything he needs to accomplish from the moment the player gains control of him, and for what it's worth I do love the reward for full completion where you just raid Nasty's treasure trove, steal all his shit, and you can just basically fly to your heart's content. But herein lies my biggest criticism of the game, and I think the other major reason why the game never clicked with me. You're introduced to the entire gameplay loop as early as the first world, and the game never breaks away from it. If you're not looking for treasure and freeing dragons in one of the game's many levels, which never ask you more than basic platforming and gliding across pits, you're taken to the sky in a handful of flight levels where you have to break a certain amount of objects in the allotted time. Can someone tell me why the flight level located in the first world is the hardest of the bunch? This shit had me doing more resets than any other level in the game. The fuck is this shit? These levels are just fine though, I had fun with them, and you feel pretty good about yourself when you discover like the most optimal route. But one of the later levels I managed to finish, which is like 20 seconds left on the clock. And the best part about these, the flight controls are inverted. Down is up and up is down, as God intended. Isn't that right, Elliot?
Jeez, you're fucking weird.
And you're fucking normal. There are no permanent upgrades, no real game-changing gimmicks or different playstyles. It's just Spyro, his tackle, his fire breath, and his glide for the entire game. In a few levels, you are given access to this supercharge where you ramp up the speed and pull off some insane jumps and glides to get to hidden treasure spots. The treetops level absolutely loves the fuck out of this move. And I know this level is considered a pain in the dick because of it, but I actually consider this one of my favorite stages because of how exhilarating it was doing that supercharged shit. Not to mention, I think I cheesed the final supercharge challenge thanks to the power of U-turns and curiosity.
Yeah, bitch!
Outside of that, the only other real temporary power-up is the Super Flame, where after these fairies give Spyro the old sloppy jalopy, Spyro's fire breath gets a temporary boost in strength that just fucks up everything. Metal boxes, armored minions, and those godforsaken bugs in the Magic Crafters world. It was real satisfying incinerating those fuckers, let me tell you. That's it though, Spyro gets nothing else. The game often requires nothing else. Things become routine in no time at all. And I know to big fans of this game, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. I've heard folks describe Spyro as cozy. You know, the fact that it remains so consistent throughout the whole game and has relatively no nonsense about it is appealing to those who don't want to think too hard or put in more work than your average 3D collectathon. You don't gotta worry about upgrades, no power star gates, no shops, no overly elaborate secrets. You don't even need to use the stage exit to leave the stage. Once you rescued the dragons you wanted and gathered all the treasure that you wanted, you can just exit the stage from the pause menu anytime you want. And I really like that. So, you know, kudos to the devs for that design choice. In this game, as early as the first world, what you see is what you get, so sit down, grab a drink, and just try to have fun. The presentation and aesthetic are colorful and laid back, no matter the environment. And this game's different worlds, I think, do a good job being different from each other. Visually, I didn't find the game monotonous. The soundtrack composed by Stuart Copeland is often viewed as relaxing, although I think it's somewhat homogenous in my opinion. I think a lot of songs end up sounding alike, and it was difficult for me to pick a song I genuinely could remember outside of the title screen. Anyone that's watched me for a long time knows that I love and appreciate consistency more than anything, especially in platformers, 2D or 3D otherwise. But sometimes I feel in this game what's considered consistent feels like complacency. I feel the original Spyro laid a simple foundation and followed it to the letter, but the result is a game that, yes, is incredibly easy to pick up. It's also not very stimulating to me. By the halfway point of my adventure, I'm realizing that the game had no intention of spicing things up, outside of making some glide jumps next to fucking impossible for no goddamn reason. Can we talk about that for a second? I have no doubt shit like this was made easier in the Reignited trilogy, but fuck man, some of these later glide jumps, fuck, feel so pixel perfect and precise that I wonder who the fuck oversaw playtesting this shit and considered it okay. I'm serious, especially if you're trying to get everything. This problem is fucking everywhere and it was getting under my skin. Make it go away. God, especially that jump towards the end of the metalhead level for just a few measly gems. It took me too damn long to get this jump right. I legit wondered, what am I doing wrong? Am I approaching it from the wrong spot? Maybe the real treasures were the friends I made along the way. Wait, what fucking friends? They're all trapped in rock. Nope, this jump is just super tight because fuck you, John. Some might call it a skill issue, but I call it you can kiss my fuzzy ass. I mean, sure, some enemies in the later half are a little trickier to deal with than previous goons and shit. By endgame, these motherfuckers are just straight up packing heat. What the fuck? I wouldn't call this game brain dead. It's not, but Spyro 1 is by no means a difficult game outside of those horseshit frame perfect jumps. Motherfucker. Still, from what I understand, the later games in the series are more of what I'm looking for, but at the same time, I still think this game still has things going for it. If you don't mind the laid-back, albeit repetitious game design, I think there's still something to enjoy with the original Spyro the Dragon. Again, the limited no-nonsense approach does make it very accessible. And let's be real, if you're going to be playing the first Spyro game nowadays, you're going to be playing the remake, right? Here, some of the more troublesome design aspects were made easier to handle. I will briefly touch upon the Reignited trilogy, but only after I finish looking at the third game. I did it for Crash in a separate video. I'll do it for Spyro 2. That way I can get a bigger paycheck. Oh boy. But either way, I hope you guys enjoyed hearing my crusty ass talk about the first Spyro game. I know this has been a long time coming. I know some of you have been waiting for years for me to tackle these games finally. And the plan is basically to cover it the same as I did Crash Bandicoot. I'm going to talk about the first 3 games in the PlayStation 1. And then later we'll jump to the PS2, the handheld games, all that jazz. And from what I understand, I have quite an adventure ahead of me when I get to the PS2 stuff. But I have no idea what that means. everybody. Sorry for this sort of impromptu shift to the credits screen, but I'm feeling a little under the weather today, and I didn't feel like getting in front of a camera. But the patron shoutouts must continue. So without further ado, shoutouts to more $10 patrons such as Snakefighter64, Kaz Zora Tunic, Engine and Tonic, Dr. Tex, Chim, Prowler, Caitlin, Lars Russell, 8-Bit Bio, Dia422, Riding on the Struggle Bus, Victory Star 527, Jerome Waters, Slant 16 Gamer, Jorge Azuro, John Rutherford, Shade Enigma, Mario Fanboy 15, Brandon Terrald, Small Movie World, Super Bro 64, that's Richie Inkwell, JD, Metron, Jordan Pringen, Nasenda, Allen's 33025, Julian Reviews, Crimson Eyed 64, Zets 278, Shadow Nexa, Martina McBride, Joel Teotuico, Pablo Vallejo, Mr. Zarzes, Calloused Hearts, Virtual Eyeman, Big Red MC 716, Toaster Jason, Uncle Azure, HR Theater, Joe Schrimmer, Xeno XX Reborn, Jack's Brother, Neo Cosmopolitan, Dan Steinbeck, and finally for today, GNXG. I will catch you guys next time with the upcoming Portrait of Ruin video and my continuation of the Spyro series. Thank you all for watching, have yourselves a fantastic night, and take care.